For 65 hours, a steel train becomes home while crossing a desert with almost nothing around it. Inside, chefs prepare restaurant meals, attendants turn beds, engineers watch machines, and crews sleep between shifts. Outside, the Nullarbor stretches toward an empty horizon. No city waits nearby. No delivery truck can arrive with forgotten supplies. And for 478 kilometers, the railway doesn't bend once. You might think passengers have the hard part, spending days inside this moving hotel. They don't. The crew must keep everything running while living aboard for 4 days. So how do Australian train crews actually eat, sleep, work, and survive this journey? But first tell me, where are you watching from?
The first thing you notice is how quickly the train becomes its own little world. Once the Indian Pacific leaves Adelaide and heads west, the crew knows that almost everything needed for the next stretch is already on board. Food has been loaded, equipment has been checked, passenger numbers are known. The plan is set. Because once the train reaches the Nullarbor, there isn't much room for improvisation. Imagine being a chef and realizing that forgetting one important ingredient doesn't mean running to a nearby store. There is no nearby store. The crew has to make what they brought last. That changes the way you work. Before departure, the kitchen isn't simply preparing for dinner. It's preparing for days of breakfasts, lunches, dinners, multiple passenger sittings, and unexpected situations that might appear along the way. 4 chefs work together inside a kitchen that is moving across the continent. Hot food is prepared, plates are assembled, orders move toward the dining car, and beneath all of it, the train keeps rolling. You might picture a normal restaurant kitchen. Cooks move around a fixed room, ingredients arrive from storage, and if something is missing, somebody can usually find a replacement. This kitchen has none of those advantages. The room moves, the supplies are limited, the dining room is moving too, and the next resupply point isn't waiting around the corner. That's why preparation becomes more than good organization. It becomes survival. The same idea applies to the rest of the crew. The hospitality workers aren't simply serving passengers for a few hours. They are living with the same group for the entire Adelaide to Perth segment. They work together, eat together, rest between shifts, and sleep on board. Their world gets smaller as the landscape gets emptier. At the rear of the train are crew accommodation areas, separated from the passenger spaces. The bunks are practical rather than luxurious. Space is limited, and rest has to fit around the working schedule. For a passenger, a long night on a train might mean closing the curtains and sleeping until morning. For crew, it isn't always that simple. Their rest has to fit around the operation. One person finishes a service while another prepares for the next responsibility. Someone may be sleeping while another crew member is already awake and working through the corridor. The train doesn't care who is tired, it keeps moving. That means the crew learns to sleep whenever the schedule gives them the chance. A few hours here, another rest period later, then back to work. After enough journeys, experienced crew members learn how to rest whenever the opportunity appears. But there is another problem: noise. The Nullarbor section has its own character. The track crosses a huge limestone plateau, and experienced crew notice the difference as the train moves through it. The constant movement becomes something the body learns to accept. Still, many regular crew members use earplugs, especially when trying to sleep. That tiny detail tells you something important. Surviving 4 days on this train isn't about one dramatic challenge. It's hundreds of small adjustments. A chef checks his supplies, an attendant prepares the next cabin. A technical crew member watches the systems. Someone finds a few quiet hours to sleep. Then, everyone does it again. And eventually, the train reaches the part of the journey where the landscape becomes almost completely empty. The Nullarbor lives up to its name. No trees stretch across the horizon. Roads become rare. Phone coverage disappears across large sections. There is only the railway, the desert, and the train carrying its own small community through it. Then comes Cook, a place that was once a railway town with a school, hospital, swimming pool, store, and dozens of workers. Today, only a handful of people remain. Yet the train still stops there. And that stop reveals just how isolated this journey really is. Because beyond Cook, the next question isn't where the crew will eat. It's what happens when something goes wrong. Now the train is deep into the Nullarbor, and the scenery has almost completely disappeared. This is where the journey starts to feel less like travel and more like living inside a machine. For passengers, the emptiness outside can feel peaceful. For the crew, it changes everything. There is no easy way to step outside and solve a problem. No nearby town is waiting beyond the next bend. In large sections, there isn't even a phone signal. So what happens if something goes wrong? The answer is surprisingly simple. The train has to handle it itself. Its own people carry the responsibility. Its own systems keep the operation moving. And its technical crew has to work with what was brought on board before departure. That is why the preparation in Adelaide matters so much. A problem discovered in Sydney might be inconvenient. The same problem deep inside the Nullarbor can become a completely different situation. The crew knows this. That's why checks become routine, supplies are counted, equipment is monitored, passenger needs are tracked. The kitchen keeps working, the hospitality team keeps moving. And somewhere behind all of it, the technical crew keeps watching the machine that is carrying everyone across the continent. This is also where the crew's strange living arrangement starts to matter. They aren't just co-workers sharing a workplace. For 4 days, they're practically a family unit. They see each other during meals. They pass each other in narrow corridors. They work through long services together. Then they return to the same crew accommodation when their shift ends. There is very little separation between work life and personal life. You can't simply drive home after a difficult shift. You can't disappear into another building. Your workplace follows you. And that creates a different kind of pressure. A crew member has to learn how everyone else works. Who needs quiet before sleeping? Who moves quickly during service? Who stays calm when equipment causes trouble? Who has done this route enough times to know what is coming? Those small relationships matter when the same people are together for days. But there is one advantage. Nobody has to explain the environment to them. They already know what the Nullarbor demands. The chef knows exactly how much food needs to be loaded. The attendant knows the sleeping routine. The technical crew knows the train. And the train manager has to keep all of these moving parts together. Then the landscape gives them another reminder of how far they are from ordinary life. The mobile signal disappears. There are no casual phone calls, no quick internet searches, no last-minute message to someone back home. For passengers, that can feel like part of the adventure. For crew, it is simply the working environment. Communication inside the train continues through its own systems. The outside world becomes distant. And that distance makes preparation even more important. Because if the train is carrying its own food, water, power, equipment, and people, then every mistake becomes harder to fix. Before we continue, if you enjoy seeing what really happens behind extreme journeys like this, subscribe. Because the most interesting part isn't what passengers see through the window. It's what the crew has to do when nobody is watching. After 65 hours, the journey proves that surviving the Nullarbor isn't about one dramatic trick. It's preparation, teamwork, food, rest, discipline, and keeping a moving world alive far from help. The passengers see the adventure. The crew lives it. If you enjoyed the journey, subscribe for more extreme railway stories.